Slender Man, the one and only. The tall, faceless man who likes suits for some reason. He's easily the most famous creepypasta of them all, to the point that he is very much mainstream. First appearing in a 2009 Photoshop contest, Slender Man quickly rose to the ranks of popularity, and appeared in many stories. He got a lot of web series, and even some movies of low quality. And he also got games. I still remember the day I found out about Slender Man quite vividly. I was relaxing in the living room when all of a sudden my siblings started freaking out for some reason. I went to see what the deal was, and they were watching a video playthrough of Slender. I watched and I was freaked out, but also intrigued. We ended up doing some research on Slender Man and found a webpage that described who he was and what the signs are that you're being stalked by him. One of them was that you had nightmares about him. Which is kind of cheating when it comes to making a character scary, because if you're scared of something, you're going to have a nightmare about it, so saying that having a nightmare is a sign that you're being hunted by them, yeah, that's kind of cheap, not gonna lie. Anyway, for a while, I was terrified of this guy. He was my boogeyman, and whenever we were driving anywhere, I would keep my eyes away from the window, because I was afraid I'd see him, and then he'd start stalking me. Eventually, I got over this, like you do for all childhood fears about fictional creatures, and I realized that he and other creepypastas weren't real. And around the time this happened, the incident happened. In 2014, two girls led a classmate to the woods and then repeatedly stabbed her in an attempt to appease Slender Man. She survived, thankfully, but this incident quickly became infamous, and I've always considered this incident to be the death of the creepypasta golden age. Nowadays, Slenderman's only really ever referenced by out-of-touch TV shows trying to seem cool and movies trying to cash in 10 years too late. Nobody takes Slenderman seriously anymore, and because of the incident, he's not even fun to talk about. Ah, yes, Jeffrey, the guy who makes you dead. This guy was stupidly popular. Not as much as Slender Man, probably because screenwriters couldn't find a way to make him different from the 10,000 slasher films we got in the 80s, but he's still very well known. Jeff is the story of a kid who gets bullied, then he gets set on fire, which makes his skin white instead of burned for some reason. Then he slashes his mouth and burns his eyelids off, which he can somehow do without burning his eyeballs. Also, if he doesn't have eyelids, then he would go blind. And don't even get me started on the fact that he has a giant cut on his face that he didn't disinfect. What the heck? You're gonna get gangrened, die! And now he's a murderer who breaks into people's houses and tells them to go to sleep. If you couldn't tell by my tone, I do not like this story. It reads like a 14-year-old's idea of what makes a character cool and scary. He has blood, and he kills people, and he got bullied. But if you watched my childhood trauma video, you knew I used to be terrified of Mr.G. And that's not because of the story. I didn't actually know what happened in it. It was purely because of the picture. And honestly, I feel like that's how it was with everyone. They never actually read the story and were actually freaked out by the picture and made up some sort of horrifying backstory that was probably 10 times scarier than what the story actually was. And to be honest, I think that's why he became so popular. A lot of kids were too scared to read the story, so they just assumed that the story was as scary as the picture. I know that's what I went through. However, after more and more people became aware of the story and realized how garbage it was, people realized that Jeff sucked. To the point that it was kicked off the Creepypasta wiki for being poor quality. But Jeff's impact left quite the black mark on creepypastas, as because of how successful it was, it spawned countless imitators trying to become the next Jeff. They would often follow the exact same formula. There's a teenager, he has a rough life, they snap, then they make some sort of modification to their body, and then they start killing people and they have some sort of catchphrase. Because I guess because as we all know, serial killers have to have a catchphrase. Everyone knows that people like Ted Bundy, before they killed someone, they'd always say something like, time to go to Deathsville, yeah. What am I talking about anymore? I don't know. This was truly the dark age of creepypasta, and I'm glad people don't do this anymore, because it really clogged up the wiki, and it made it seem like it was nothing but 14-year-old anime OCs that are scary because they have a knife. Actually, why do fictional serial killers never just use a gun? It seems like it would be way more convenient. Actually, never mind. I just realized that the image of Jeff saying go to sleep then pulling out a Glock is just laughable. Okay, I think I just figured out the answer. Anyway, that's Jeff. A crappy story that's only popular because it had a good image, which ended up being far more interesting than the story itself, because we're still trying to figure out where it came from. I don't have much to say with Smile Dog. He didn't become mainstream like the others, but he was still popular in the community. But because he wasn't a human at all, people weren't able to simp for him. Smile Dog is a digital urban legend that says that once in a while people will be emailed a strange message containing a picture of a dog with a very human-like grin. Viewing the image is said to cause you to become visited by the dog in your sleep, demanding you to spread the word, as in share the image with someone. If you don't comply, the nightmares will just get worse and worse. Smile Dog is a story that, weirdly enough, didn't scare me as a kid, but only scared me in hindsight. Mostly because I didn't really get it as a kid, and it took me a little while to really understand what the story was. Only then was I actually creeped out by it. Other than that, not much to say. He's a dog that drives you insane. I want to see him fight the Cheshire Cat. Just kidding. That fight would be way too one-sided. The dog wouldn't have a chance. The Rake is a pale creature similar to what the internet claims skinwalkers are, despite them literally just being guys who can morph into whatever animal skin they wear. Just saying. Anyways, the Rake got his name because of his long claws that are like a garden rake. The Rake isn't written like a typical story, but rather it's kind of written like a profile of a cryptid, in that it collects a bunch of stories about people's encounter with the entity. The most famous one being an incident where the Rake broke into someone's house and killed their daughter. No one knows what this creature wants, or why it's like this, or even if it's a mortal or a species. But anyway, this guy, as a kid, this guy was even worse for me than Jeff, as the way the story was written made it seem like it was more real than others, and the fact that it was like a cryptid made it even worse. And this is a true story. I always did a thorough search of my room to make sure he wasn't there before I went to bed. As in, I would look in the closet and empty every drawer just to make sure he wasn't, like, hiding somewhere. Yeah, really. I consider him the classic creepypasta that aged the best. I'm grouping these together because these stories are basically exactly the same. Lost episode creepypastas are basically creepypastas detailing a never-aired episode of a popular TV show that had disturbing content in it. The genre is said to have started with the story of, mouse who does damage to himself to the point where he dies. .avi. Because file extensions are scary. Oh wait, I'm not at that one yet. Anyway, the story is about Mickey Mouse walking down the street while a drunk guy plays the piano, and whoever sees it decides to take their own life. Scary? Yeah, this story didn't scare me back then, and even to this day, I have no idea what exactly about it is supposed to be scary. I guess if you're scared of descriptions of pianos, it's pretty scary, maybe? I don't know. But the story that really got this genre on the map was Squidward's, self-harm to the point of death. In this story, Squidward from SpongeBob is booed at a concert, so he shoots himself. And there's pictures of dead kids. And the video is edited just a few seconds before the episode was watched. What makes that scary? Like, oh, it was edited before it was watched. Like, why is that scary? And the last of the popular Lost episode trilogy is Dead Bart, a Simpsons creepypasta where Bart dies. And apparently every celebrity dies on the same day. Also, can I just talk about something real quick? This image is always associated with Dead Bart, but that's Homer! Do your research! Yeesh. Well, I really hope someone got fired for that blunder. After these stories came out, it opened the floodgates. All of a sudden, every show ever made had a creepypasta about it where, oh, a character goes nuts and then they murder the entire cast. Ooh! Also, a lot of these involve interns working at a studio, and for some reason they're obsessed with the term hyper-realistic, because I guess they think it's scary. It's not. Anyways, when I say every show had one of these, I mean it. Even shows like Family Guy or South Park. What can you do in a creepypasta about them that the shows wouldn't do themselves? Oh, Peter starts killing everyone. Ooh. But you know, that's completely in his character to just randomly go on a murder spree. And he has before, canonically. So, yeah, no, that's not a creepypasta. That's a season 18 episode. Plus, there's the fact that these stories always manage to involve a single person who managed to make an entire animated program by themselves. Do these people know anything about the animation process? That's not happening. If they made an animation by themselves, it would look like my videos. Eventually, people got sick of them, and the wiki basically purged every story that didn't have seniority, and they straight up made it a rule you can't write lost episodes there. They're still the butt of joke among Creepypasta fans, but there is one that I recommend you read. It's called Lost Episodes Can Be Found Again. It involves a guy who as a kid watched a lost episode version of the Disney movie The Aristocats, and decided to figure out where these types of episodes come from. And that's all I'm going to say. I really recommend you read it or listen to it, however you prefer to take in stories. Related to lost episodes are what is known as television pastas, which instead of lost episodes of real shows, deal with shows that never existed in the first place. The most famous is Candle Cove, which deals with people on a forum discussing a strange local puppet show that, as it turns out, was more disturbing than they remembered. This story became really popular and even got adapted into a TV show season. Also, the writer of it made the Local 58 series, so that's cool. Then there's Happy Appy. It's a show about a clay apple that helped children and predicted the future. And the creator of it stalks the author, I guess. This story is the definition of quantity over quality. This story is unjustifiably long. Like, they need to describe every single facet of what happened to the author, it feels like. And I just do not get why this story had to be so long. And it has sequels, which are just as long, so yay! And then there's 1999, which is weirdly controversial for some reason. I have no idea why. If someone knows why the story has so much drama around it, I'd love to know, because I cannot figure it out. Anyway, the story is about a local show that's hosted by a devil worshipper. And that's about it. I never really got into this one as a kid. I'm only mentioning it for completion's sake. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on for TV and talk about things that plug into TVs. I never read this one. Haunted Legend of Zelda cartridge of a statue, and I guess there's a cult. 10 out of 10! Sonic.exe is ridiculously popular to this day for some reason. It's like the only creepypasta that's still consistently brought up, even though the story is complete garbage. It's about a spooky Sonic game where he kills his friends. Ooh! Anyway, this story got a sequel where it's revealed that the Sonic in this game is a god who took the form of Sonic. I wish I was kidding. I couldn't make that up if I wanted to. The canon story is that it's a god who took the form of frickin' Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, I think I found a way to make your monster instantly less scary. Have him turn into Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, I hear people defend this story saying it had potential, but I don't see it. Everything about this is just every, oh, the game is alive story ever made, and I guarantee you, if this didn't feature Sonic, no one would care about it. Prove me wrong. Prove to me that if this was an original story that had nothing to do with Sonic, people would still like it. Exactly, you can't. Tails Doll is an urban legend about the racing game Sonic R. More specifically, one of the characters. Tails Doll, obviously. Allegedly, if you beat the game 100%, Tails Doll would do something. It depends on who's telling the story. He would either kill you or erase you from existence. I don't know. However, apparently, when the game was released on the Sonic Gems collection, the creator of Mario put a seal on the game to block the curse, so now he can only get out if you play tag mode and tag Super Sonic so he can absorb his power and break out of the game. I'm sorry. Like, okay, a few things about that. Number one, I guess he's a sorcerer now and can just add seals to games. Secondly, did the creator of Mario even have anything to do with this game? Thirdly, this game was also on PlayStation 2, so did he also go to Sony to put the seal on the PS2 version, or is that just as cursed as the original? So yeah, this legend is stupid, and it's the only reason Sonic R had any sort of legacy, because otherwise it's just the most mediocre racing game ever made. Also, another thing that bothers me, why is Tails still associated with the song Can You Feel the Sunshine? Like, that song does not play on the stage you unlock him, but you never hear people associate him with living in the city. No, it's always Can You Feel the Sunshine for some reason. Man, what is it with creepypastas and making weird associations? Did these people actually play the game or watch the show they're making a story about? Anyway. Lavender Town's a place in Pokemon where Pokemon are buried after they die. It has creepy music, and because a lot of people played Pokemon as a kid, it ended up traumatizing them, and as such, when they grew up, they decided to recapture this fear and make stories about this town being more than it seems. The most famous of these, of course, is Lavender Town Syndrome, which claims that the original version of the music had a frequency only kids could hear that would make them self-murder. Obviously, this isn't true, since if a bunch of kids died playing Pokemon, it would have definitely made the news. Remember, in the late 90s, people were looking for any excuse they could to dunk on Pokemon, so it killing a bunch of people, yeah, people would definitely be talking about that. And before you say cover-up, Nintendo couldn't even hide the fact they gave a bunch of kids seizures, so try again. The other Lavender Town story deals with two alleged scrapped enemies, White Hand and Buried Alive. White Hand is a decaying hand that had two attacks called Fist and Brutal. I'm not touching that. And apparently its animations were missing or something, and I guess you'd go insane if you watched them, I don't know. Buried Alive, meanwhile, is a zombie who would challenge you to a fight, and if you won the game would crash, and if you lost he would eat you. And he would give a game over screen with disturbing music playing. And the game over screen would replace the title screen of the Game Boy. Because why not? Nintendo's just jerks like that. I always found this one kind of stupid, since why didn't they make an ending where the player won first off? And secondly, just imagine how terrible of an ending this would be. You spend the entire game being told you have to defeat the Elite Four, capture a bunch of Pokemon, and take down a criminal organization. Then all of a sudden the game ends with you being eaten by a zombie that had no build-up in an unwinnable fight. And you never actually get to fight the Elite Four or take down the criminals. If that happened, I think this game would have been incredibly, incredibly hated. Then there's Creepy Black. Well, when it first came out, it was just called Pokemon Black, but then that game became real, so people had to specify when talking about which one it is. Anyway, it's a ROM hack that lets you kill Pokemon with a new creature called Ghost. I like this one, mostly because it's not about a haunted game. It's just a ROM hack, and at no point has it ever claimed that the game's out to hurt you in real life, so yeah, pretty good. Okay, no more video games, because Pokemon alone has way too many. And the rest are basically just, the game is alive and it hurts you, or if you die in the game, you die for real. Woo! Okay, there is NES Godzilla, which is pretty good, but I don't want to have to read it since it's like 50 pages long, so let's move on. These pastas are exactly what they sound like. They're theories about media and how there's something the creators aren't telling you about it. Most of these are just, every character is dead, or they're a hallucination by one character, or they're in a coma, or every character is either on drugs or they're a metaphor for the drug. Ooh! These theories are a dime a dozen. You could be applied to every TV show in existence. And the best part, you don't even need evidence. After all, you can't prove something's not a dream, can you? These theories died out for a while, but unfortunately, thanks a lot TikTok, they've come back in full swing. So now a new generation of kids are being told that Sonic is actually a kid from Colorado who overdosed on heroin, or that Kermit the Frog is trapped in hell for the crimes he committed during Vietnam, or that Sully killed Mike Wazowski before the events of Monsters, Inc., and the whole movie is him coping with his friend's death. I made this three up, but be honest, could you even tell the difference? Every day, it seems, I see a short in my recommended that's like, the truth behind blah blah blah, and it's just people recounting the same things I heard 10 years ago, like, did you know that Nemo means nobody in Latin? That means he doesn't exist. It's totally not a reference to a certain literary character, no. Pixar is trying to tell you that they intentionally made a movie where a character doesn't exist. I am smart. I'm 14. I watch Mojo, so I'm smart. Eyeless Jack is a guy who has no eyes. And then he takes your kidneys. Cool. This story is not very good. Jack just kind of exists, and we never get a reason why he goes after kidneys, or even really why he does anything. It's just, he steals a body part. Spooky. And let's not forget that the main character decided the best thing to do when he woke up to the creature staring at him was to take a picture of it. Yes, really. That's what he thought would be the best option. And even more stupid is that the creature just stood there while it was happening. Does he just have a camera next to his bed, or do you have to actively get up? Whatever. I'm thinking too much about this. So yeah, not a good story. Laughing Jack, meanwhile, I feel like could have had potential, but it dropped the ball. Basically, the story's about a mother whose son has an imaginary friend, Laughing Jack. But as the story goes on, it seems Jack may not be so imaginary. The son has been inexplicably getting his hands on candy, their house is broken into, and she starts having nightmares about a strange clown figure. Eventually, she wakes up one night to find her son being tortured by Laughing Jack. She tries to stab him, but he disappears and she ends up stabbing her son in the heart. When the police arrive, she's arrested and put in an asylum, with Jack never being seen again. Like I said, this story has potential. I mean, come on, a not-so-imaginary friend, that's a cool idea, but I don't know, the story just has a bit too much gratuitous blood that really takes me out of it. So cool idea, bad execution. Russian researchers in the 40s were doing experiments on a gas that would cause anyone exposed to it to be unable to sleep. After a while, the testers started becoming crazy. They started ripping chunks of their flesh off and things like that. And then they started getting so crazy they attacked the scientist. But before the final one is shot, he goes on a weird rant about how, I guess he's the boogeyman. Yeah, I never really cared for that part, but overall the story is pretty good and it's easy to see why it's considered one of the best creepypastas. Herobrine is an alleged entity that spawns in Minecraft. He makes strange structures and... Actually, that's about it. It's never reported that he's hostile or anything, I guess he just messes around with your world. Though allegedly, he only appears if you have the rendering distance set to low so he can disappear in the fog. Also, he's the ghost of the dead brother of the creator of Minecraft. Yeah, I always find that plot point stupid because of how easily debunked it is, but yeah, in general I don't really find the story scary, but it does take me back to Minecraft's early days when the game was weirdly creepy. You see, if you're too young to remember, when Minecraft first came out, we were just not really able to comprehend the idea of a game that is infinite. Because of that, the game had a feeling of isolation to it. Villagers weren't a thing yet, so it was just you, some random animals, and the bad guys that wanted to kill you. And there was no bombastic music either, just slow piano pieces, so the whole thing, it just felt kind of wrong, like you were the last survivor in a world that wanted you dead. So yeah, Minecraft had a creepy feeling about it in its early days that disappeared after more friendly things were added, and this story feels like a reflection of this time, so I'll give it that. If you go to youtube.com/666, you'll be taken to a dead channel, but it's said that if you refresh the page about 20 times, it'll become more and more distorted. Eventually, a channel will pop up, and on it are very gruesome videos. And if you stay long enough, you'll be forced to watch a video depicting a woman getting drowned. And the worst part? You can't escape from it. Backspace doesn't work, you can't exit out, you can't Control-Alt-Delete, you can't even turn off the computer. Eventually, a hand will appear in the video, and your computer will crash. It's said that this channel belongs to the devil himself. Oh geez, how do I talk about this one? Oh, wait, I got it. Normal Corn, for normal people, is a website that you can only access by a link given to you by email. The website's tagline is that it's a website dedicated to the eradication of abnormal wheat-based grains. At first, it seems like there is nothing but an incoherent rant, but then it turns out that every word was a link to a video. These videos depicted strange things that seemingly had nothing to do with corn. There are videos about dogs eating peanut butter sandwiches, a woman making out with a mannequin, and a man with no legs trying to break dance. Eventually, though, a video is uploaded depicting a woman getting mauled to death by a shaved chimpanzee. This video got the site taken down, and any mention of it will get you blocked on most social medias. So yeah, great story, but I hate how hard it is to talk about. NES Godzilla is a pasta detailing a strange copy of Godzilla, Monster of Monsters for the NES. At first, the game seems alright, but then the author notices strange anomalies. Bosses are glitching out, and the fact that there are now monsters from films that weren't even out yet. At first, there's only like a difference of a few months, so it could be chalked up as like a teaser or Easter egg for future projects. But then monsters start appearing whose films didn't come out until years after the game came out. And weirdest of all, every world ends with an encounter with an entity known as Red. And every time you encounter him, you have no choice to run before he gets you. And he can hear what you say from the game. If you insult him, then bad things will happen. Eventually, you have to fight Red, who has a ridiculously high health bar, and the attacks you do to him basically do nothing. And meanwhile, every move he does to you hits you like a truck. And I mean that literally, because during this point, any damage that stunned a Godzilla will happen to you in real life. Eventually, though, Red's defeated thanks to the author's dead girlfriend. Long story. But then he decided to sell the game online. Yes, really. I like the story. It has very nice images and things like that, and I like Red, but basically, I have to agree with the opinion that the ending sucks. That's basically what everyone says, and I am not one to contrary about it. I have no idea how I let this out of my last video. This is probably the most famous urban legend in all of gaming. Allegedly in Oregon in the early 80s, there is an arcade game called Polybius. No one can agree on its genre, but the most common story is that it's a space shooter. It's said if you play the game, it'll cause all sorts of effects on the player, from nightmares to seizures, and in some cases, it causes those who play it to develop an aversion to video games as a medium. Also, men in black suits would come by the machine occasionally and seem to collect some sort of data from it. No, not much to say here. It's a classic. It's been referenced plenty of times, even in mainstream media, so I don't really feel like I can add anything more to the story. It's just good. Why is this story even considered a creepypasta? It's a fan fiction. It doesn't pretend to be an episode that existed but then got banned or anything. It's a fan fiction. Anyway, this My Little Pony creepypasta involves blah blah blah. One of the horses is like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you. Oh no, you can't kill me." Blah blah then blah 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 blah. Then she does kill him. Blah blah blah. Torture. Blah blah blah. Cupcakes made of horse meat, I guess. If I cared about MLP, I would probably care more, but I don't. So this story's just boring to me. I do want to vent about something though. This story is the epitome of the issue I feel like plagued bronies the most, which was that they seemed to be convinced that only adults watched MLP. So they just started making the most messed up content you could think of, often without any warning whatsoever, and it would just be like, often without any warning whatsoever that it would be some sort of scary content. So kids who like the show would often encounter these things, and, you know, I'm not gonna rant. I'm just gonna link to a video about how bronies got a little too comfortable making adult content in the description. Sometimes I am thankful that bronies are dead, and I never want to hear people claim that a fandom is the next brony. Unless Bluey gets a fan fiction where a character gets turned into cupcakes, I do not want to hear about how its fans are the next bronies. You shut up with that right now! This story is about a guy exploring an abandoned Disney park, but then he encounters a spooky costume that's alive and photo negative for some reason. Ooh! I like the urban exploration angle, but the sentient costume is just stupid. Why is it even photo negative? How does that make it scarier? Did the author think, a regular Mickey costume coming to life, that's not scary. Oh, wait, a photo negative Mickey coming to life. Yeah, that's scary. Ugh, not much else to say here. Allegedly, there is a cursed YouTube video showing a man with a red filter. If you watch the whole video, you will pluck your eyeballs out and then mail them to YouTube. I'm sorry, I can't take that seriously. Just the idea of a guy with no eyeballs walking around his house looking for envelopes, then he finds that he doesn't have any stamps, so he has to drive to Walmart to get some more. And the whole time, he's just leaving a trail of blood everywhere, so the janitor hates him, and then the whole time, anyway, he finds the stamps, then he's like, I gotta get home now, but then he finds out he's low on gas, so he has to stop at a gas station to get home, so he's just sitting there, and meanwhile, everyone's just staring at him because he has no eyes, and he just tries to play it cool, like, hey, and then he drives home, and then he's like, oh crap, I forgot the keys, then he has to go back to the car to get the keys, and then he finally puts the eyeballs into the envelope, he puts it in the mailbox, and he realizes, oh crap, it's Sunday, so he has to wait an entire day for the for the mail to go out, and then finally it gets to YouTube. Yeah, I just cannot take this story seriously because of that whole mailing eyeballs to YouTube thing. If you're not careful and no clip out of reality in the wrong place, you might end up in the back rooms. A strange pocket dimension full of strangely colored carpets, the buzz of an old AC, and maddening colors. As this gained popularity, it started to get more fan-made lore, with monster levels and government guys, and gotta be honest, I am on team better without monsters. Sorry, I just prefer the idea of a place where you're basically isolated with your thoughts and you can eventually go mad because of isolation, and there's only a hint that there's something else there. It's never explicitly said, but it's hinted. 085 is a sentient drawing created in a freak accident. She has been nicknamed Cassie, and she has the ability to enter different drawings and take on the art style of whatever she enters. But it's not like she actually enters the story of the drawings. So if she enters a comic book, for example, it's more like she's exploring a wax museum. Another ability she has is that any drawn object she interacts with will act like its real self. You draw her a glass of water, then she can actually drink from it. The only exception is that this doesn't work on living creatures. Because of this, and the fact that she became aware of her 2D nature, she's become incredibly somber and lonely. How sad. 250 is the skeleton of an Allosaurus of an unknown species that bears a weird resemblance to a Monolophosaurus. Anyway, it simulates what is thought to be the daily habits of an allosaur, pacing around during the day and becoming dormant at night, as well as attacking any creature it deems prey. But since it doesn't actually have organs, it just swallows them and then they fall through its ribcage, where it then pays them no mind. Nobody knows how this creature is able to stick together without flesh, or even how it gains sentience in the first place. You know who this guy should meet? He should meet the T-Rex from Night at the Museum. Yeah, let's see that. 261 is a snack machine found in Japan. You put in some yen, enter a number, it'll dispense a random snack from the multiverse. Could end up with just a bag of Cheetos, or you could get a food that by all accounts should not be physically possible, such as a never-ending can of Pringles that is impossible to stop eating from, a mushroom that makes you hallucinate that you're watching a sitcom, a flashlight whose different colors make you taste different fruits when they're shined on you, and more. Just do not anger it. Don't use counterfeit money, don't use the coin on string trick, and do not repeatedly press the coin return button, because if you do, the machine will fight back. From dispensing gummy middle fingers made from cyanide to dispensing cans of wasp with threatening words on it, or it will just straight up dispense a live grenade. So yeah, multiversal snacks at reasonable prices. This SCP raises a lot of questions about the past. This entity is the dead body of an unknown Pachycephalosaur species. It wasn't always that way, though. It actually arrived in what is by all accounts a time machine. It was pretty friendly to the staff and even found a way to communicate with the researchers. But they died 40 days later. This creature raised a lot of questions. If dinosaurs had a society, how did no evidence of it survive? And the fact that they're a Pachycephalosaur is another interesting thing, because you'd expect that if a dinosaur was intelligent enough, they'd be a theropod or something, like a Troodon or an Ornithomimosaur, but a Pachycephalosaur? Now that's interesting. 387 is a group of sentient Lego bricks. When they're in their container, they'll keep duplicating until the container's full, and anything built by the Lego will start acting like their real counterpart. So Lego people will be alive, and they can drive Lego cars, despite those not possessing engines. They'll even start building their own Lego cities. In addition, any pre-existing Lego brought to them will be integrated. But just make sure you don't bring any, Lego competitors, because if you do, then they will do something that had to be censored, and it freaked out the scientists studying them. My guess is that they managed to make a working thermonuclear bomb, but that's just my theory. SCP-423 is an unknown entity that calls itself Fred, and Fred has the ability to enter textual narratives. But he prefers to be a minor character and is pretty much never the main character. While he can enter stories that have illustrations, he will never appear in the pictures, so he's pretty humble, all things considered. I wanted to meet Cassie. I think they'd get along. 504 is a breed of tomato that seemed to not be any different from any other tomato, but its effects activate when it hears a bad joke. When it does, it'll hurl itself at their target, with it going faster the worse the joke is. And if a joke is bad enough, they'll move at supersonic speeds, which vaporizes the target. So, yeah, you might want to keep your mouth shut around these guys. 507 is a guy who randomly slips between dimensions. He has no control over this, but luckily, years of doing this has made him good at surviving. But still, he's been subjected to all kinds of mistreatment, from being stalked, almost being executed, to falling great heights, and more. Hey Doc, welcome to the party. I'm afraid you're gonna have to explain this to me. There's apparently more than one version of me with this problem. Should have seen this coming, honestly. So many ways an alternate reality could differ without affecting my personal life, you know? So, which one of you is the visitor? Is something wrong? We've actually been talking about this for a bit. Now, you guys have been real nice to us, more than we might deserve, really. But we also know that this could be a rather enticing opportunity for your research department. It'd probably be best if you didn't know which one of us was temporary, expendable. I don't know what kind of stories you two have been sharing, but our job is to secure and protect the likes of you. Perhaps this other reality has a less benign code of conduct. And perhaps I can shoot fireballs from my mouth. We don't mean to be hurtful, but this place isn't the best source of human compassion. I'm sure there's at least one person on staff who'd love breaking me open in an attempt to figure out how all this freaky stuff works. Wasn't for the fact that you couldn't keep studying me afterwards. Do you have to put it like that? I have enough things to keep me awake at night. Good God, I know. Once there was this guy with a huge smile. You met him too? Nearly sold myself. Wish I was that lucky. You know, this could be interpreted as a security breach. Who's the doppelganger going to report to? Alternate SCP? I'm fairly sure there's a better chance of meteor striking than successful cross-dimensional sabotage. You know, I've actually come across at least 3 dimensions where something fell from. You're not helping. I rarely do. Anyway, where... Well, now that our visitor has left, I have a question. All right. Did you two figure out the difference between your realities? Actually, I think we did. In this world, Abraham Lincoln was killed while sleeping by his vice president instead of by General Lee. In this reality, Lincoln was assassinated by Booth. Oh. 561 is an anomalous area in Canada that causes any living thing inside of it to have its reproductive cycle change. How so, you might be asking? Well, any baby born in this area will be that species' Cenozoic equivalent. Doesn't matter if they were closely related or not, if they fill a similar role, then they will be given birth to. What? So, for example, deer will give birth to megalosauruses, elephants will give birth to mammoths and mastodons, bears will birth cave bears, ostriches will lay eggs containing terror birds, big cats will give birth to saber-tooths, whatever. Though, for some reason, whatever rhinos give birth to had to be censored. What did they spawn? This SCP is an abandoned farm in China. As you can probably guess from the name, the strange thing is that the farm was full of corpses of prehistoric animals, and they seem to have been raised for meat, as the farm would sell the meat to a food company. Such dishes that they provided meat for include sweet and sour sauropod noodles, velociraptor soup, tyrannosaurus rinds, deep-fried therizinosaur, trilobite buns, and even dino bone tea. Doesn't that just sound delicious? It's unknown how they acquired these creatures. SCP-662 is a silver handbell, but it notably does not have its ringing mechanism. Despite that, shaking it will make a ringing noise, and this will summon the entity known as Mr. Deeds, a British butler who will then grant any request that's reasonable. He can't get you a nuke, but he will be able to get you a grenade, and while he can make food, he refuses to make anything out of human flesh. He can also fulfill tasks like washing dishes. One strange thing to him, though, is that it's unknown as to where he gets the item he procures, as whenever he has to fetch something, he just walks out of sight and returns with it moments later. And he himself has said that he has no idea where he gets them either. So, definitely interesting. 674 is an NES zapper. Though nothing about its makeup is supernatural, it still has an anomalous effect that activates when you shoot something on a TV screen. When you shoot at a TV show with the gun, the characters in the show will end up actually getting shot, with how they react depending on how guns would affect them in the actual canon. So characters from sitcoms will die, but cartoon characters will just get a face full of soot. And if characters are canonically immune to bullets, then, well, they won't get affected. However, these changes are only perceived by the people who fired the gun. Nobody else will see what happened. And this will change it permanently, as from then on, anytime they watch the show or movie or whatever, then the characters will act like the incident where someone got shot happened, and they'll even start addressing the viewer for shooting them. And in worse cases, they can even fight back. SCP-870 is a group of completely invisible monsters. They cannot be seen with any method known to man, and their true form is unknown. However, there is one exception to who can see them. They are able to be perceived by people who have schizophrenia, but even then, they always perceive these guys differently, and even two people at once can see the same creature something different, and they've seen them as many things, from humanoid to animalian. These guys are vicious predators, and they will stalk their prey for months before striking. So yeah, keep an eye out, folks. Not that it'll matter. I'm sure the first thought many have when getting into SCP is, hey, is Area 51 a part of this? Well, the answer is yes. But it's not a base. It is an SCP. You see, Area 51 is in reality a sentient building-like creature that's able to send messages over satellite and radio. And these messages are claims of Area 51 being some super secret government facility with aliens and other cool stuff. But when someone approaches the building, it'll gobble you up. It also periodically lays eggs, which resemble pop culture depictions of UFOs, and if not captured, they will leave Earth's atmosphere. In order to protect people, the Foundation has operatives disguised as U.S. military personnel patrolling the place to keep people away, and they've done a lot of disinformation campaigns to make the idea of Area 51 being something cool seem ridiculous. Hello, 1051, can you hear me? Give. Pardon? Give. Give what? Want. Feed. You don't get any food. Area 51 is currently being controlled by the SCP Foundation, a shadow government organization that is designated at SCP-1051. Here are a few names of the operatives. Send out D7238. Now, why are you sending out these signals? Bring food. What do you mean? Learn humans curious? Make curious. What about those discs we captured? Catch baby? They're eggs? You reproduce that way? Dr. Richardson, Agent Adler, Agent Crescent, its coordinates are the following. SCP-1051 proved to be highly uncooperative following that interview. All attempts to destroy SCP-1051's distributing organ met with failure. 1128 is an aquatic entity whose anomalous property is quite chilling to those afraid of water. If anyone knows what the creature looks like, then the next time they become submerged in water, they'll be taken to its home, where it'll most likely eat you. Oh, and you might be thinking, well, okay, then I just won't take baths or go swimming anymore. Well, guess what? If you go too long without submerging, the creature will just pull you into the next body of water you come across, regardless of if you should be able to fit in it or not. One poor sap got dragged into his drinking glass. That's how small the pool is required to be after a while. SCP-1160 is a massive bird who is extremely aggressive. By all accounts, it's invincible. So, how do you contain this thing? Well, the Foundation found out that the more people who are aware of this bird, the less powerful it gets. Now, how do you exploit this? They turned it into a cereal mascot. I'm not kidding. They made it a mascot for a cereal that's heavily implied to be this world's equivalent to Cocoa Puffs. And basically, they made a backstory for the mascot that's full of subtle nods to the bird, which led to more people becoming subconsciously aware of it, therefore weakening the bird. So yes, in this universe, Cocoa Puffs were invented to weaken a giant bird. Wow. The Mesozoic Preserve is a space in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and inside of it, dinosaurs. New species are always popping up, though the preserve seems to favor dinosaurs that lived in Africa, like Kentrosaurus or Spinosaurus. But dinosaurs from all over the world have been seen, and each time period has been observed. Though, as they note, there has never been a T-Rex seen. It can also spawn in non-dinosaur animals like pterosaurs, and there was once even a Postosuchus sighted. Another anomalous property of the area is that the dinosaurs cannot leave. If they cross the border, they'll dematerialize, then reappear somewhere else in the preserve. In addition, while the known dinosaurs are passive to humans unless provoked, there are some creatures that don't resemble any known species of dinosaur, and those ones are highly aggressive. But they suddenly turn passive if they're discovered in the fossil record. So, I really love this one. It gives a cool explanation to the Congo dinosaur cryptids, and just by reading it, it's obvious it was written by a paleo nerd. Despite the name, the anomaly here is not the diner, but rather a group of its patrons. 4 elderly men will enter the diner every day and stay for exactly the same length of time. And if one of them is prevented entry from the diner, horrible things will happen. One conversation recorded between them seems to shed light on their true nature. You gonna finish that? Yes, I'm gonna finish that. I always finish what I order. You've been asking me, you gonna finish that every day for the last 60 years, and the answer was always the same. Why do you keep asking? I guess I'm just an incurable optimist. Ain't no such thing as an incurable anything, Frederick. Trust me on that. I don't know about that anymore, Pat. Seems like your big act is getting a bit less popular lately. Not this again. Look who's talking. You wouldn't even exist if people got their acts together. Now look here. Shut up, both of you. 60 years listening to this crap. Every single day. You two are lucky I love the coffee here so much, or I would have left you two to kill each other years ago. Yeah, because we just find your presence so delightful, Dwight. Don't think for a second I forgot about you, Warren. You were the one who get us mess in this first place. It was an honest mistake. Where I come from, a giant fiery mushroom usually means the end of the world. How was I supposed to know it was just a big bomb? It's your area of expertise! Not like it used to be. I don't get these new trends. Honestly, everything today is remotes and drones and electro thingies. Give me a good elephant over this nonsense any day. I hear ya. Oh, come on, guys. It's not so bad. We're always going to be around until the very end. Ain't nothing they can do to change that. Easy for you to say. Your thing is basically bulletproof. Relax. I know staying here for so long got you guys a bit stressed out, but it's only a matter of time before we can ride on. Besides, much as I hate to admit it, I actually like it here. Food's great. And the atmosphere. Not to mention the waitresses. I think the blonde one just winked at me. Can you get me a piece of that pie, love? Much obliged. So we just sit tight and wait. It's gonna happen any day now. I know it. Yeah. So, Warren, you gonna finish that? 1357 is an anomalous theme park. On the 13th of every month, it'll send tickets to a random family that has at least one child under the age of 18. The theme park will end up being themed around whatever the youngest child's favorite show or franchise is. At first, it might seem like a fun place, but if they feel like you're acting bad, they'll kick the parents out while keeping the child with them, who they will then convince has been abandoned by their parents, and when they no longer have any fun, they turn him into another one of the park's employees. Pesterbot is an autonomous life form. It calls itself many names, and it's convinced that it is an incredibly feared individual. But in reality, Pesterbot is terrible at fighting thanks to his poor design, making him very unstable at moving. And he has never won a single fight in his life. He even once lost to a potted plant. Because of this, nobody takes him seriously, and he's seen as a joke to the facility. SCP-1459 is a machine that resembles an empty crane game. On the side, it advertises you can win a cookie by playing. When a quarter is inserted, a puppy is descended into the machine. It'll then ask for a command, and when given a unique one that hasn't been used before, it'll kill the puppy using whatever the command is. Afterward, the game tells you you're going to hell, and it'll dispense a cookie flavor that you hate. But the machine does have some standards, as one researcher asked for the dog to be ripped apart as slowly as painfully as possible, and this caused the machine to spare the dog, and instead it dispensed a cookie with local churches written on it with frosting. And when they asked you to kill the dog using the containment method of another SCP, it spared the dog, told the researcher they're definitely going to hell, and dispensed a cookie full of cyanide. I feel like what makes this SCP work is because just how over the top most of these deaths are. Very few are mundane, and most are more like things you'd see in a cartoon, which I feel like helps really take the edge off a game where you literally kill puppies. 1481 is a plastic coffee container. When rubbed, a genie will pop out. Cool! Except for the fact that, as you can tell by the name, this genie is perpetually high. So whenever he tries to grant wishes, it'll either never happen, he gives you the wrong thing, or he claims he's already fulfilled your request. Hey there, young fella. I have some questions for you, 1481. You ever notice how white this wall is? I feel like it's got so much meaning. In relation to the items you're able to manifest, where do you take said items from? I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, you know? How? Enough questions, man! I just need a taste, just a taste. You can't just order me to tell you stuff. If you can get me like, I don't know, like 40 grams of the stuff or something, come on, man, please. So there I was, right in front of this guy, waiting for him to make his wishes, and all of a sudden he looks at me, and he says, for my first wish, he says he wishes for me to be an alcoholic junkie, and then he says that his second wish is that first wish couldn't be unwished, and then he just walks off. I don't understand it. I really don't. So now my life is ruined. I used to give kings what they wanted, you know. I used to live in palaces. Now I got no friends. Just the cold nights, hard ground, and nowhere to lay my head. SCP-1867 is the world-famous explorer Lord Theodore Blackwood. He's constantly telling of adventures he's went on over the years, and his stash of artifacts is even found, which consisted of many unknown species and artifacts from unknown cultures, and even fully detailed globes of Venus and Mars. But because there's no evidence of any of his expeditions, the Foundation has no idea where he got the stuff. Good morning, Dr. Blackwood. Ah, good morning, Doctor. Wonderful to see you. Come in. Have yourself a seat. Now, if I remember correctly, the last time you were here, I was telling you about the time I was captured by the Ubula tribe of the Congo. Actually, I have some questions about that story, today. Our research turned up no trace of those people. They don't seem to exist. Of course not. There weren't any of the Ubula left after the village was attacked by Mokela Mbembe. I still regret not being able to bag that monster when I had a chance. It is a persistently elusive creature. That's a stretch, sir. You have any evidence, just to make sure what you're saying is true? It's always a chance your vault is filled with fakes. Nonsense! I would never fabricate any of my work. Why, it's against the very heart of being a naturalist. While I am repeatedly amazed by your institution here, you seem to be missing the explorer spirit. When I scaled the Himalayas in search of the monks of the Golden Mountain, did I worry about what others had to say about them? Of course not! I went and found it for myself. Climbed those mountains on my own 2 hands! You do realize you're a sea slug, right? Good heavens, boy, have you been drinking? That's utterly ridiculous. If you can't be bothered to be sensible, I have no reason to speak with you. Go get yourself a nice cup of tea and sober up. This one is a sad tale of what happens when you don't do proper research before going on a trip. 1958 is a VW microbus that had been mysteriously altered for space travel. It was turned into a rocket by a group of hippies who were planning to use it to head to the Alpha Centauri star system to start a new civilization. But there was one big issue with their plan, where the bus wasn't going any faster than a usual automobile, meaning that at the speed they were going, it would have taken over 30 million years to reach their destination. Unfortunately, they thought it would only take a month, so they launched off without a care in the world. But as the diary of the driver details, things start going horribly wrong. Bought the bus today. Hocked basically everything we own between the 4 of us to make the down payment. Jerry says it's perfect. Plenty of space inside for all of us. Plenty of room under the hood for stuff we're gonna need to pack in there. Says it's probably gonna be ready in a couple months. Susan wants to graduate before we go, so probably wait until summer. Plenty of time to get everything we need.
Feels like only yesterday those 50 squares kicked us out for our heresy. They laughed when I told them Jackson was wrong, that the eggs were wrong, that Rand was wrong. Magic up there, all right. But I'm not going to sit there and work 9 to 5 and wait for it to come to us. We're going to it. Heaven's up there, man. Just waiting for its angels. Blast off, first men in space. Take that, Khrushchev. Here it is, Independence Day. And for the first time in history since man started setting up his rules and his laws and his banks, 4 people in the universe who are truly free. Oh, it's so beautiful up here. Earth is getting smaller and smaller. I swear, it feels like we're barely moving at all. But Jerry says we're pulling 82 on this thing. Ain't no pigs up here to pull us over. Says it ought to be 3 weeks, 4 tops before we make it to Alpha Centauri. We lit up a couple and said goodbye to Mother Earth one last time. Would you believe we still get AM on the Motorola? Outer space is rockin', man. Ran out of beer today. Sam cracked one open of breakfast when we noticed there were only 7 left. Olympia, 2 Rainier, and a Coors. We cracked them open of lunch. Even let Susan's cat have some. Looks like she's gained some weight since we took off. Everyone's kind of bummed about the beer situation. It's all good, though. As soon as we land, we'll get some barley grown, and by next year, we'll be brewing our own. Jerry's dead. Something bumped into us during our sing-along. Jerry said it was probably just some space dust, but he wanted to go outside to check it out. Put on a spacesuit Susan made for him and climbed outside. He was on his way back in when something bumped us, and he lost his grip. Susan and Sam were screaming as he drifted away. I tried to turn around, but I never learned how to drive. And these things handle like boats even when they do have a road. By the time we got to him, he was dead. Susan won't stop bawling. They were going to get married when we landed. I got my license and everything. I was going to do the deed myself. I had to give her some pills so she could sleep. It's a good thing we're halfway there by now. The sooner we get out of this bus, the better. Susan was dead. The needle was still in her arm. I don't know how she got that much junk on her with her. Never touched that before in her life. Played Amazing Grace on the guitar and said a little something while Sam put her out the airlock. Maybe she'll find Jerry out there. Something's wrong, man. Should have made it by now. I don't even see Alpha Centauri out the window. We going the wrong way? We go too far? Can't make any of these sense of these star charts. Jerry was the expert. I'm just a philosophy major. Sam and I have been getting sick too. I've been getting weaker. We've got these splotches all over our bodies. Sam's having trouble eating and he lost a tooth yesterday. Haven't seen the cat in days. I can smell something bad. I think she must have crawled under something and died. Hope we make it soon. I can see the moon out the side window. Something's wrong, man. All this time out here, we not even past the moon. Jerry must have messed up the math. We'll never get back there in time. I don't think we can get back home anymore. I closed all the windows once I saw it. Can't let Sam know. He can't hold his food anymore. Not doing much better myself. I'm all alone. Sam died this morning. He could barely sit up or see towards the end. Asked me if we were there yet. I told him, yeah, man, we'll be there tomorrow. Just get your rest. I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth. Asked me to read him, and death shall have no dominion one last time. His eyes were closed by the time I finished. They never opened again. I pushed him out the airlock when he was gone. No one's going to be able to push me out, though. The stars are so beautiful out here, man. This SCP tells of a strange phenomenon where on high-res photos of Neptune, strange text is seen on the planet. Nobody's sure what is making these messages, but they all have a pattern discussing how lonely the entity is and how scared it is to be alone. So, what is on Neptune exactly? Who knows? SCP-2006 is a strange creature with seemingly limitless shape-shifting powers. Its main goal in life is to scare people because it finds it fun. Now, it's really not all that scary since the Foundation has convinced it that cheesy B-movies are the height of human terror.
but they know there's always the risk that it could find out that it's been lied to. And then it'll find out what people are really afraid of. It could find out about the horrors of war or the apocalypse, and considering its shape-shifting powers, it could easily carry these fears out. Not so harmless now, is he? Laugh is Fun is an anomalous TV show that manifests in various forms. Nowadays, it mostly appears in disc rental kiosks and streaming services, but it used to manifest as DVDs in rental stores, and before that it appeared as VHS tapes. There are 38 seasons, and the setup is that it's a hidden camera prank show that often has deadly consequences for its victims, as they often get fatally injured during the process. The host of the show is known as Laffy McLafferson, but his face is always just out of sight of the camera, making identifying him impossible. Notably, whenever he reveals himself, no matter how hurt anyone was by the prank, they instantly start laughing when they find out it was a prank show. In addition, it seems the show's victim pool is derived from those who watch the show, so I'd recommend not watching it just to be safe. So yeah, this show's basically the epitome of those just a prank YouTubers. Are those guys still around? Or did they go extinct? I hope it's the latter. Great Ideas That Are Totally Useless is a stack of papers that once a week will gain a new page detailing of how the Foundation could destroy an SCP, but then it goes into detail about how horribly wrong it'll go. And then it'll conclude with a snarky comment about the situation. For example, the way it's suggested to kill SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile that the Foundation is set on killing, is that they'll send it to the moon, reduce it by a large amount, and then nuke the crap out of it. Unfortunately, this would only result in it growing to the size of Saturn and then eating every planet in the solar system. And the moral that it writes for this one is, well, that's the way the world goes. Not with a bang, but with a crunch. But for reals, though, don't. With the gecko. Angry face. Dr. Spanko is a corncrake. He's capable of speaking, but you don't want him to, as he has no volume control at all, and everything he says is so loud it can actually cause damage. But attempting to punish him is useless because he has no concept of cause and effect. He also loves gummy worms, and a special drink he calls moose juice, a combo of tomato juice, horseradish, Sunny D, and melted M&Ms, which despite not having alcohol makes him act drunk upon consumption. But his most notable attribute is that while he can speak, he speaks in a language that seems completely random. But in truth, everything he says has an equivalent in English, and it could be translated. For example, he calls gummy worms strangle fruits, he calls himself EZP233 and Steven, and he has a weird tendency to say cack in his sentences. And also, he seems to have a weird connection to other dangerous SCPs, but he refuses to elaborate on this. Please state your name for the record. Cack! I'm Chris and her! Dr. Spangoflex! I'm colloquially named Splat with SCP-233 and Steven. I'm complicit across the state! Thank you. And how? Listen, SCP-2337. It me, Cack! You seem to have a pre-established relationship, so swords are several of the most dangerous creatures in our custody. And how? Yes, please elaborate on the nature of this relationship. It just done shall forth. Applesauce and tricky mayonnaise forsooth. Ant rape, come packing with store-brand hostility cakes from mouse stuff. Slavey kids grew boarded and theored from cheapskate beta unknown cadaf. Mike and Filbert. The three-ringed hobo stack over and over. Alakazam. Cack. Please repeat that statement in the dialect used by the Foundation. 10-4, X-Lax. Please stop yodeling. And cack more sense? We need you to cooperate and explain your answer in a coherent way. Mitochondria the molasses, and what the Spago Freezer said. For shame this. Escalate the right query Q molasses. You're not hearing me, are you? Only with the Nebraska cack flap amigo salad. Cack. Cack? What ho? Eastward bound? Profound disappointment. Snackutations, Dr. Spanko. Cack, you am authoritor? Explanarate. Cack, 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 cack! Noble turkey stats, fist of the 11,000 war cushions! Into the cackening! Damn the tornadoes! Sis, boom, cack! Leave. Guten idea have, cack! SCP-2362 is an object located in the Kuiper Belt. although you might know it better as Pluto. Why is Pluto an SCP? Well, you see, one day it was discovered that Pluto was developing a strange growth on its south pole, and then it started to experience massive fissures across its surface before eventually splitting in half, revealing a jellyfish-like creature that set off to its home system. In order to draw attention away from Pluto, the Foundation successfully managed to get Pluto declared to not be a planet. While the controversy garnered more attention in the short term, doing this will ensure that eventually only hardcore astrologists will be aware of it, and therefore protecting the true identity of the former planet. Now, you might be wondering about the images of Pluto from 2015. Well, that was a doctored image made to hide Pluto's real identity. So yeah, basically in the SCP universe, Pluto was demoted because it was actually an egg. 2399 is a massive mechanical device located on Jupiter. The machine is currently broken, but it's sending out drones to repair itself. Intercepted signals sent to the machine reveal it was supposed to be sent to Earth, and considering all the weaponry it's equipped with, it could not have been for a good reason. But on its way to Earth, it slammed into one of Jupiter's moons, and the high gravity pulled the remains towards the planet. Since then, Jupiter has noticeably had a red spot swirling on it. The Foundation has managed to block the signals being sent to the machine, which is good, because the latest message sent to it told it to cease repairs and head to Earth immediately. Cragglewood Forest is a non-existent park that people have false memories of visiting in their youth. The only commonality between the people who remember it is that growing up they were an only child. The park is described as being full of animatronic trees, and the only ride is a carousel, though nobody ever remembers riding on it. But as the article continues, the idea that the park doesn't exist is brought more and more into question. What do you recall about Cragglewood Park? Is that what this is about? It's just a nightmare I used to have. Can you elaborate? Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably based on some actual theme park. I went to it as a little kid, you know? Probably traumatized me. What happens in the nightmare? I went to this theme park. It's like Disneyland, but smaller. No rides, just this long, winding road through the woods. Everything's bright and colorful, like a cartoon. And there's these trees all around me, but tell me about the trees. They got faces, and they're singing. They got those dopey, cheery, colorful looks like one of those old-timey cartoons, right? And they just sing and laugh and sing. Can you tell me anything else? There's this music that's playing everywhere. It's like that organ music, but not the kind you hear in church. More like what you'd hear in a carnival. You mentioned before there weren't any rides. No, I'm wrong. There's rides. There's one ride. Just one. It's a thing of horses that goes around in a circle, you know what I mean? A carousel? Right, that thing. That's where the organ music is coming from. Were you alone? No, there were other kids with me. We're not happy to be there either. We're all smiling and laughing, but we're just doing it to stop ourselves from crying, you know? Fool the trees, so the trees don't see how scared we are. To keep the trees happy. Keep them happy. Yeah. Anything else you can tell us? I don't know. I haven't dreamed about this place in ages. I think there's one bit near the end. Please, relax. Take as much time as you need. Just as I'm getting ready to leave, I see something. A tiny tree sprouting up near my foot. Looks up at me. It's smiling with that big, dopey, happy grin when I see it. That's when I start screaming. That's when I wake up. Why does the tree make you scream? Because it has my face. Did you ever ride the carousel? What? Are you crazy? What happened when you reached it then? Some of the kids got on. Not me, though. The ones who did, some of them were smiling, some were crying. Some of them hugged the ones who didn't get on. Some of them hugged each other. Then what happened? They rode the carousel, then we left. What happened to them? How should I know? We left! You left them behind? Yes, we left them behind. What, you think we should have stuck around and see how this is all going to turn out? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to accuse you of anything. You were just a child. No one would have expected you to. That's right, I was just a child in the middle of a nightmare, and you have no idea what even talking about this is doing for me or how it's making me feel. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to forget it. Why can't you just let us... I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize, Miss Yearling. You've clearly gone through a deeply traumatizing experience. I don't understand. I can't imagine you would. Nothing about this experience makes much sense. Not that. It isn't that, it's just... What is it? One of the kids that got on. Yes? Why did he hug me? I don't even know who he was. I'd like to talk to you about the video cassette. I understand that this is... You people just don't get it. I don't want to discuss any of this with you. I shouldn't have told my therapist about any of this. Please, Mr. Bear, I need you to focus. Get on with it. This cassette, where'd you get it from? I don't know. I found it in my attic when I was cleaning. Thought it was just some old copy of Ghostbusters or something. Do you recognize any of the images on it? I don't know. From nightmares, stuff like that. Maybe someone showed me the tape as a kid. Have you lived in this house your whole life? Yeah. You were raised in this house by your parents? Yeah. Just going somewhere? Front bedroom? Look, I don't want to talk about this, okay? I understand, but we need to understand what's going on, Mr. Blair. Why is the front bedroom... I don't know, okay? It's always just had stuff in it, but nobody uses it. That's why I keep it locked, okay? I don't think about it. I understand, Mr. Blair. I just need to ask. We done? Just one more question. Whatever. Mr. Blair, have you always been an only child?
2599 is a 14-year-old Korean girl. Appearance-wise, there's nothing unusual about her. But her anomalous property is twofold. First off, she is completely unable to disobey any command given to her. And I mean any, even if it should be impossible by human standards. She will do it no matter what. But then there's the second part of her abilities, and that's anything she's commanded to do, she will only be able to complete partially. No matter how mundane it is, she cannot finish any task she's assigned. Tell her to flip a coin and have it land on heads, it'll land on its side. Tell her to stack blocks, she'll never finish the tower. Tell her to make a piece of paper blue, she'll make it purple. Tell her to kill someone, she'll just put him in a vegetative state, etc., etc. So in a nutshell, she's a reality warper, but can only do it halfway and only on command from others. Also, when confronted with a paradoxical command, she'll end up summoning rabbits and turning her floor cotton to comfort herself. One time, she was ordered to kill SCP-682 until it was 200% dead. And she started doing it, and she was winning the fight, until the reptile shouted, "Just kill me!" At which point she stopped. So yeah, the big tough reptile got his butt kicked by a teenager. Never forget that. Okay, this one needs some context. The EX series of SCPs detail things that were thought to be something anomalous, but then it turned out that everything they do has a scientific explanation. For example, there's 1094EX. Basically, they found a planet that looked like a giant eyeball, and they thought, oh, it's probably some surveillance drone, or the eye of a giant creature, or something! But no. It's literally just a planet that looks like an eyeball. That's it. My favorite of the EX series is the fur trout, mostly because it's less describing an object and more so a journal entry, which I will read out. Due to my history of the area and knowledge of lore surrounding it, I have been selected as SCP-2600's research director. Words do not do justice to the excitement I feel. Ever since I was a boy, I have dreamed of catching the fur trout, and now I am in charge of the world's most advanced lab, completely dedicated to it. I handpick the personnel that are going to work for me. They all have the youth and zeal to get the job done. Research station is finished. All of my staff tell me their excitement. As the primary research director, I have been allotted my own office. I put a stuffed fur trout over my door. It may be fake, but my staff finds it amusing. A real breakthrough. Lawrence is in the field today checking some of the local waterways when a deceased instance of SCP-2600 appeared. I've ordered greater exploration on the area Lawrence found it at. Gave Lawrence a little bonus while I was at it. I've got research on top priority doing tests on it, and we'll have our data soon. And to think I was starting to get discouraged. Nothing. Whole lot of nothing. That's all we get from these tests. No major differences, no anomalous properties, just a trout with fur. And right before our annual review,
I have to think of something quickly. I can't believe I did it, but I had to. We're so close to achieving a breakthrough. I couldn't have let my team apart. I had Burn drop some speculative research, but it's okay. The review period's over. We can find a real one. I can make my news report confirming our hypothesis to be added to the main document. I have faith that we will be okay. Nothing. Still nothing. None of our results gave us any new data. It's like we've been sitting on our hands for a month. We've had nothing to add for the document. So I had to tell staff that we had results that confirmed them, and added it to the report. But we'll get real results soon. I can feel it. My nightmares come true. Our records are being audited. They're going to go through all of our papers. They're going to see what's different. No, I have research working, triple, overtime to get anything. All my agents are in the field looking for the possible spawning grounds I mapped in the document. We can't fail now. I just can't! I've ordered agents to start dynamiting the places I feel are spawn points. They can't use it against me if I put it out of commission. I can explain it. I'll say they got dangerous. It'll work. It'll work. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. I need to be okay. I think it's over. Sitting in the tiny office. They have the records. I know that any day now I'm going to be that call. And I'll sit in a tiny cell and they'll ask me about my research. I can't do it anymore. I'm downing patent medicine in bulk. My staff knows the truth of what I'm up to. I think everyone hates me. I'm going to lose everything I've been working for. I didn't do anything to hurt anyone. I just wanted truth. Notice to all personnel. Director Dobson has been relieved of his position. Our investigation found a ring of researchers working with the director, falsifying research and manipulating data to justify further research. As of now, our data shows that the SCP-2600 specimen is nothing more than a fungal infection. It has been designated explained. You will all be receiving relocation notices to projects more worthy of your time.
I don't know, I just like the idea of a Foundation worker being dead set on proving that a local urban legend he grew up with is true, only to be repeatedly come up with failure. 2835 is a lost episode of the short-lived cartoon Patty the Pelican, which is considered one of the worst cartoons ever made. The episode's 30 minutes long, and its anomalous property is that the cartoon can hear you, and will even ask your opinion on it. But the thing is, it cannot take criticism. And upon saying anything mad about the cartoon, it'll start threatening the viewer, and if he gets mad enough, he'll dox you. It is still unknown how he acquired this information.
So, Freddy Fox knows who my real father is. Ain't that a laugh and a half? Who are you expecting my father to be?
How do you know my name?
No. We're not doing this answer a question for question crap. I asked you who you think my real father is. I think I'm entitled to an answer. Do you have any idea how hard I worked on this episode?
Kenny Crow is your dad?
Good lord, man, are you blind? Kenny and I are like the same age. I mean, where'd you get the idea that he's my old man? Am I really being that confusing?
I'm sorry.
You're sorry? Don't care. Reap what you sow. Reap it. I'm sorry. I'm a failure. I don't know why I even bother to show anymore.
Look.
Reap what you sow! Gee whiz, I sure do love ice cream cones. How about you? I'm talking to you.
Excuse me?
I'm holding an ice cream cone. It looks delicious. Don't you think it looks delicious? This isn't hard. I know you didn't go to college or anything, but don't tell me you're so stupid you don't know what a good ice cream cone looks like. Yes or no? Is this ice cream delicious? I put all this work into making the ice cream look tasty, and here you are twiddling your thumbs at me. Do you have any idea how disrespectful that is?
Dude, your cartoon isn't even that great. All the animation just repeats over itself without any regard for lip syncing.
See that? That crap was the last mistake you ever made. You dumb...
Are you gonna get back to the cartoon, or...?
No, you had your chance to watch my work respectfully. You... And then look what you did. Yeah, dude, you suck. I could be a better cartoon pelican than you ever could be. I brush my teeth with bacon grease. What's long division? I swear to God and all the angels, I'm going to scoop you down the throat, right into the acid, everything you hold dear. Reap what you sow!
You.
Reap what you sow! 2499 North Terrace, Indiana. Your kids are adorable, especially... Do they know that their own father fed them to me?
Wait, there's no way in hell that you knew.
Reap what you sow. You deserve it. Everything gets what they deserve. Even the undeserving get what they deserve. But the deserving? Oh yeah, you and everyone you love. Reap what you sow. I'm going to enjoy every second of this, and you've got no one to blame but yourself. Reap what you sow. Reap what you sow. Reap what you...
3108 is a modified Nerf gun that contains a single anomalous Nerf dart. When this dart is fired from the gun, and only this gun, as any other Nerf dart won't work, and the dart won't do anything if fired from any other gun. Anyways, anything hit by the dart will become a worse version of whatever it is. Printer paper will become toilet paper, dollars will become quarters, humans will become Neanderthals, things like that.
Mr. Pierce, today I'm going to be asking you some questions about another of your creations, specifically the gun. Get... Now, that's not helpful. Perhaps I should have Agent Green talk to you again? That isn't necessary. I'm sure he's a busy guy. We wouldn't want to bother him. Lol. Pierce, did you really just say the letters LOL out loud? I'm used to talking on the internet. Sue me. So, what do you fascists want to know? Why did you create the gun? Oh, the Nerfing gun. Classic. Yeah, I thought it would be funny. That's it? Look, what do you want me to say? It's as simple as guns making the world worse or something? Not everything has some grand symbolism, man. It's just something I thought of while smoking. I mean, come on, a Nerf gun makes things worse? Hilarious! I didn't even think of the obvious pun till later. I got bored of it and gave it to my little bro as a birthday gift. Probably should have warned him to be more careful, but live and learn, am I right? You honestly expect me to believe that? Despite your group's supposed pacifism, the anomalies you all have produced can be lethal. This little joke of yours has changed steel into balsa and people into invertebrate. You clearly intended this as a weapon. You used it on people? Our testing history is not relevant to... It was supposed to be a joke! It was funny! I changed Mass Effect 2 into 3, my neighbor's SUV into a smart car. I didn't use it on people! Why would you do that? I'm not a murderer! Why would you turn a joke into a torture device? Get out of my cell! I'm done talking!
3166 is an entity resembling a poorly made costume of Garfield, with its insides being stuffed with lasagna. 3166 manifests whenever the Garfield franchise starts to fall out of the public eye, or starts to be seen in a majority negative light. And when it manifests, it'll target people who are either critical of Garfield, involved in parodies of it, creators of rival media, and on one occasion it even targeted Garfield's creator, Jim Davis. When it captures its target, it'll assault them and start force-feeding them lasagna, which is made using the meat of Mr. Davis. Nobody knows how it gets this meat, but before it manifests, Davis will often report feeling a similar feeling to mosquito bites. I think I like this one because it's a pretty cool explanation as to why Garfield is still around, despite a lot of people not really caring for it anymore. The idea that's because they have to keep it around or else an entity will spawn in is just a pretty clever way of explaining it. Now we just need an SCP that explains why The Simpsons is still running. No, the Foundation itself is not an anomaly. This is the name of a board game that was gifted to the Foundation by one of their adversaries, Dr. Wondertainment, a toy company whose products often have supernatural qualities to them that makes them unfit for human playtime. Anyways, this entry is kinda lengthy, so I'm not going to be able to give a full rundown, as it pretty much is a lengthy description on how the game works. Basically, it's a supernatural board game, and there are different goals, and the winner gets a gold bar worth exactly how much money is wagered. But if the pot is too high, it'll dispense play money. I recommend reading it yourself. I just really like fictional board games, and you can clearly tell this is written by someone who loved board games. $44.99 is an anomalous breed of great white sharks that are capable of speech. What do they talk about? Well, they're salesmen. They sell things. What do they sell? They try to sell you other SCPs. Stupid, but I find the concept funny.
I don't know, man. I just don't think a statue that kills you when you blink has much of a market. No, trust me. This thing is cool. I can name 10, 20 anomalous zoos that would kill that one of these things. Dude, it literally smears feces everywhere. No one's paying to see that. Besides, it won't do anything if everyone's watching it. You've got a point. What about the chainsaw that turns inanimate objects into ghosts? I think you got something there. Imagine the aesthetic appeal for goths or haunted house owners. Yeah, that's my angle. Here's what I've got so far. Have you ever looked at the bright, colorful world around you and thought, this happy-go-lucky crap is really cramping my vibe? Then do we have the product for you. Introducing the chainsaw, the #1 product for making what you see, what you saw. Oh, nice, man. Loving the tongue-in-cheek slogan. Really catchy. Yeah, I think I got a bestseller here. Commission's gonna be through the roof. Definitely gotta see what Steve has to say about this.
Let's end us off with a pretty creepy one. This is 4885, an entity resembling the character of Waldo from the popular puzzle book series Where's Waldo. What this guy does is that if at any point you know his exact location, he will face through the nearest wall, and then he will crawl out of your esophagus, killing you, and it'll cause a yellowish liquid to cover your body, where it'll then be covered in Where's Waldo-esque illustrations. And knowing the location of these corpses will also trigger the effects of this entity. Because of what causes this guy to activate, this entity is only theoretically contained, and the process in which they capture is incredibly complicated. That involves a lot of random variables, multiple moving cells, things like that. So yeah, it has a complicated process of containing, but it kind of has to, or else, it'll activate.
Mic check. Yup, all good. Equipment check. Everything works. Ditto. Transcript number 67. We are entering the house. No one's talking to you, Melly. Oh, stop it. Now is not the time, Kurt. Right, sorry. Initial descriptions of the object were a pair of black spectacles capable of killing the user and covering their body in strange pictures from an unknown children's book. It was obviously Where's What? Kurt, stay professional. Just want to bring some life into M1's robotic speech. And I'm trying to keep my job, Kurt. Right. There's a picture on the wall. Yeah, look. It looks like crayon. Take a picture. Already on it. Good. Think it has something to do with the anomaly? Of course, it looks like Waldo. Do any of you have any idea on where the object may be? I think it's in here. Which room is this? Bathroom, there's a toilet and shower. So at least I think it's a shower. What kind of shower is this? There's a modified sprinkler on the ceiling. There's a switch on one side of the room that I assume would activate the sprinkler. Seeing as this house has been abandoned for years, I doubt it would work. I stand corrected. Who's paying the water bill? Is it still hot? Ah! That's scalding. Who is? I've discovered a subject. It was resting on the toilet. Good, you know the drill. Yep, these are the ones. I'll put these in a baggie real quick. There's an inscription here. It's in, where? Over here on the wall. This was definitely not here when we first got here. Should we just leave it be and tell command about this, or probably a medic? Here, let me translate. I have training. It doesn't appear to be a medic. It says the basement. The corpses from the child's book are in the basement. He is there too. And then it cuts off. Take a picture and we'll send it. Oh! You okay? What happened? What the? Please, please, command. We're at. I repeat, we need assistance. ASAP. Help.
The Midnight Game is said to have started out as an old pagan ritual used to punish those who committed a sin. There's no reward for this game. It's basically just a game you can play if you're a thrill seeker. For this game, you will need a candle, piece of paper, something to write with, matches, wooden door, and a drop of your own blood. Write your full name, first, middle, and last on the paper, and allow a drop of your blood on it. Turn off all the lights in the house, light the candle, and put it on top of the paper in front of your wooden door. Then knock on the door 22 times, making sure the final knock is done at exactly 12 a.m. Immediately open the door, blow out the candle, and shut the door, and relight the candle as quickly as you can.
If all has gone according to plan, the game has begun. You must now avoid the entity known as the Midnight Man until 3:33 a.m. If your candle goes out, that means he's right next to you. You either have to light it within 10 seconds or surround yourself in a circle of salt. Though if you do this, you cannot move from that spot until 3:33 a.m. If you fail at either of these, the Midnight Man will show you a hallucination of your worst fear as he rips out your organs one by one. You can tell you're near the Midnight Man if you feel a sudden drop in temperature, see a humanoid figure in the darkness, or hear chanting noises. If any of those things happen, leave immediately. If you reach 3:33 a.m., Midnight Man will leave, and you can continue on as normal. But just remember, Midnight Man will always be watching you from now on. Some rules. Do not turn on any lights. Do not use a flashlight. Don't go to sleep. Do not use another person's blood. Don't use a lighter instead of a candle. And never provoke Midnight Man. Hide and seek is traditionally a game requiring multiple people, but following this ritual will allow you to play the game by yourself. Not exactly, but we'll get there when we get there. You will need a doll with limbs, rice, a needle and crimson thread, nail clippers, something sharp, salt water, a bathroom with a bathtub, and of course a hiding place. To begin, you need to remove all the doll's stuffing and replace it with rice, then add one of your fingernails and sew up the incision using crimson thread. Fill the bathtub with water and put your saltwater cup in your hiding place. Now that everything is in place, it's time to begin. Give the doll any name that's not your own. When the clock strikes 3 a.m., tell the doll that you are it 3 times and put it in the tub. Turn off all the lights in your house and count to 10. Return to the bathroom and stab the doll with your tool, while telling the doll you found it. Next, tell the doll that they are it. Place it on the counter and head to your hiding place. To end the game, you simply need to put half the salt water in your mouth and find the doll. When you do, pour the water in the cup on it and then spit the rest onto the doll and then chant, "I win" 3 times. And then burn the doll. Some rules for this game. Do not leave your house. Keep the lights off. And make sure your game does not last more than 2 hours or the spirit will become too strong to remove. Other than that, have fun with it. The Devil's Game is a way to get some answers out of an otherworldly entity. While not omnipotent, the devil still possesses knowledge far greater than any human, and thus he knows things that you might want to know. To play this game, you'll need a can of salt, 7 candles and something to light them with, a red string, a full-body mirror, and a church. To begin, you'll need to enter a church and have everything set up by midnight. Surround the mirror with a circle of salt and wrap your string around it, surrounding the salt with candles, and once you light them in a clockwise fashion, you are ready to play. Get the devil's attention by doing something sacrilegious, then close every door and turn out all the lights except for the candles, and stare deeply into the mirror. If all works out, your reflection will be replaced by whatever form old Scratch decided to take. At this point, the game begins. This is a question and answer game. He asks you a question, you get it right, then he has to answer any question you ask truthfully. But if you get it wrong, then he can lie to you. And it's impossible to tell if you get a question wrong. Father of all lies, remember? And these questions will not be easy. He likes tormenting people, you see, so he'll either ask you things that you only have a vague knowledge of, or a very personal question, things that you even lie to yourself about. You could also give him a riddle, and if he gets it wrong or gets stumped, you have to ask him a question. But if he gets it right, he gets a pass, allowing him to lie to a question he would otherwise have to tell the truth for. You can also ask him to dare you to do something, and if you accept, then he'll have to tell you the truth. But if you accept the dare, you have to do it. Or else. To end a ritual, all you have to do is thank him for playing and say farewell. Once you're sure you're looking at your own reflection again, you can leave. Now, here are some things to keep in mind while you play. Make sure the game ends before an hour and 6 minutes have passed, or else. Make sure you stare at the mirror the whole time. If you ever look away from it, he will be able to leave the mirror. And let's just say whatever state your body's found in the next day will depend on his mood. Make sure you don't give him too much personal information, or he can really get inside your head. If a dare seems suspiciously easy, don't do it, because he is definitely using you as a pawn for something. If he asks you your full name, don't answer it. If you do, all your protections will be rendered void, and he will pull your soul straight down to hell. Now, what happens if you go over the time limit, you might be wondering? Well, if you do, then once the game is over, you'll find out that you are now in the mirror. All the door leads to is a white void, and the devil has possessed your body, at which he will do whatever evil thing he can. And even worse, the mirror will be infested by the creatures that haunt your nightmares, so that's fun. Only way out is to call for him and beg him to let you free, which he'll do, of course, for the usual fee. You should probably just stick to Google. Channel Infinity is a ritual to access a secret television channel. You will need a TV, older ones are preferable, a remote, but it doesn't actually have to be the one from the TV itself, an item that has great value to you, a weapon, 2 handheld mirrors, your favorite book, a cell phone, a key, and a sledgehammer or pickaxe. To perform this ritual, turn the TV to any channel you don't actually receive, and then leave the room the TV is in for 3 hours, and make sure nobody else enters either. After the hours have passed, return to the TV and stare at the screen until you feel disoriented. Then, give the valued objects to the person closest to you and have them wait outside the room this ritual takes place in. Next, hold the mirrors in a way that makes it look like the TV is behind you. If you do this right, a question will pop up. Use up to answer yes and down to answer no, and be truthful or this ritual will not work. After completing the questionnaire, 3 possible things can happen. 1. Your favorite show of all time will come on, but it'll depict everybody getting killed off in incredibly gruesome ways. 2. The TV could display a picture of the person or thing you hate most of all. If it does this, destroy the TV with the weapon. Upon doing this, the TV will repair itself and you can continue. And finally, and the one you don't want to happen, you could end up getting sucked into an alternate dimension. If this happens, grab the key, book, whatever heavy weapon you brought, and the phone, and head to the nearest public building. Using the key to open the front door, find a room with only a single entrance, and start reading your book. You will hear footsteps, but do not look up from the book. When the step stops, count to 250 out loud. Upon doing so, you'll hear a knock at the door. If there's 3 knocks, open the door. If there's 4, then shout "I forbid you" twice, and then open the door. Upon opening it, you will see a statue of whoever you love most. Destroy it. Then head outside, and whatever happens next depends on the moon's color and fullness. If it's a pink half moon, call the 3rd most recent contact on your phone. If it's a pink full moon, dial a random number, but before they pick up, bite your tongue. If it's a green half moon, strip off all your clothes and run back to your house, and do not look behind you. And if it's a full green moon, well, you don't want it to be a full green moon. After whatever secondary step happened, you will wake up in front of your TV, having reached Channel Infinity. The shows on this channel will all be answers to some sort of question you have, and you're free to watch whatever you want. And to end this ritual, you just have to leave the room. But there are 2 major catches. 1, you cannot share any information you learn, and 2, you can only reach Channel Infinity 4 times in your life. 11 miles is a simple ritual that can be used to grant a wish. In order to do it, all you need is a car and a wish. To do this ritual, find a stretch of road bordered by forests and focus on what your wish is. If you do this hard enough, you will see some sort of sign in the trees, like glitter if you wish for wealth, or rose petals if you wish for love. You will then find a turn on the road. Go down it, and the game has begun. As the name suggests, this road's only 11 miles long, but as the miles increase, it'll get more and more difficult to get through. First off, every mile will get a drop in temperature, causing you to become colder and colder, and secondly, the inhabitants of this road will get more interested in you. First mile's not that bad, a little chilly, but just turn on the heater and you'll be fine. Second mile, rocks and potholes will start appearing on the road, and you'll have to start turning more. Third mile, humanoid figures will start appearing on the trees, and the road will become dirt. Fourth mile, you'll start hearing whispering in your head. Don't listen to it, just try to tune them out with your thoughts. 5th mile, a beautiful full moon will illuminate the sky over a seemingly endless lake. Do not look at it, as gazing at it will cause the road to suddenly come to an end and you'll be plunged into the icy cold waters. 6th mile, your radio will turn on and a voice will start reading off things related to what you fear most. Pay no attention to it and keep driving. 7th mile, one of the figures will have found their way into your vehicle and will start whispering into your ear. Whatever you do, do not look at it. Just ignore it and it'll eventually become bored and leave. 8th mile, very sharp turns. 9th mile, your car will stop. Close your eyes and start your vehicle. The beings have surrounded your car, and the start of the engine will scare them off. 10th mile is deceptively easy. All that happens is the figures will start staring at you like they're impressed. Don't be fooled. They're just waiting for you to get to the last and worst mile. On the 11th mile, your car will stop again, but it'll be moving as if being pulled. You will see a red light up ahead. Close your eyes. Make sure there's no way to get even a glimpse of what's in there. You will hear horrific screams all around you, and the temperature will end up going up instead of down. It's often theorized this is some sort of hell, but whether or not it's actually connected to the place is debatable. If you manage to make it through, you just need to drive a bit more, and you'll reach a dead end. Close your eyes and make your wish. Open your eyes, you'll be back at the start. Whatever you wish for will either be somewhere in your car if it's a physical object, or if it's more of a concept, it'll happen soon enough. And that's it. No catch. You're not cursed. The spirits won't follow you home. You won. And that's that. So, good man ritual, I guess. It's said that breaking a mirror causes 7 years of bad luck. This is said to be due to how mirrors are said to trap negative energy, and breaking it causes it to latch onto you. This is a ritual exploiting this fact. To do it, all you need is a mirror and a candle. How easy this ritual is depends on how old the mirror is. Older mirrors are harder to do this with, but on the flip side, older the mirror, the better the reward. To start, look your reflection dead in the eye for a few seconds, then breathe on it until a foggy spot forms. Then use the candle to burn the mirror until there's a black spot. Finally, break the mirror and run. The negative energy in the mirror will follow you through the night, causing increasingly unlucky incidents, getting more and more dangerous. But if you survive until dawn, you will get a period of very good luck, with how good and how long it lasts depending on the age of the mirror and how much you've used it. Also, one warning, do not start this ritual during the day. The energy is only warded off by dawn's light, not daylight in general. So if you start during the day, then congratulations, you now have to survive for a lot longer. It's said you can access the Wikipedia of an alternate dimension if you follow the following steps. First things first, get some sort of portable device that can access websites. Make sure it has none of your personal information on it, though. Then, find a place of public Wi-Fi. And a weapon. To begin, go to Wikipedia and find a popular page. Keep clicking on links until you come across a page that basically nobody has heard of. Once you have a good feeling about that, go to the homepage and repeat a few more times. Do this enough, you'll come across a page devoid of all text, except for the phrase, information limit, and a string of numbers. Copy these characters and leave. Find a place with no internet whatsoever, as in no networks at all. Open the page and refresh. It'll bring you to a login screen, where you must then put the numbers you found earlier, except for the last two characters. Do this correctly, and you're in. If the homepage isn't in the language Wikipedia is set to, leave immediately. But if it is the same language, you can proceed. Whatever you do, do not go to more than 15 pages and don't spend more than a minute on any page, or else the inhabitants of that dimension will come for you, and they are immune to any weapon known to man. So if that's the case, you're probably wondering what the point of the weapon is then. Well, it's not for them. You see, there's a 15% chance that just by accessing the site, you'll attract a different entity known as lurkers, and these guys can be killed. Okay, so all that aside, what's actually on this website? Well, as stated earlier, this is basically the Wikipedia of an alternate dimension. Here you will find strange pages about phenomenon, events, and entities that don't exist in this universe. As the story says, you don't need to worry about the things you read here, because everything you read about doesn't exist in this universe. So don't stay up at night scaring yourself over it, or you'll just be worrying about nothing. So just be brief and be careful, and you'll be alright. Though the story does imply that if you do this ritual too many times, you'll find a page listing a phone number. The phone number that's in your area code. You have 2 chances to answer it, or else, well, we never find out what happens if you do or don't. There is a website said to allow its users to experience the ultimate horror. It's called blindmaiden.com. Most of the time, this website cannot be accessed. The only time you'll be allowed on the site is if it's midnight on the night of a new moon. Once you enter, a quick montage will flash by of people with their eyes ripped out, and their faces distorted in horrific ways. After this is over, you'll be shown a brief message asking if you would like to participate in the experience. You must click decline. Doing this will let you browse the site's gallery of images at your leisure. But if you click accept, then the blind maiden herself will come to your house, kill you, and take your eyes. She'll then take a photo of your corpse. Just another photo to add to the gallery. This ritual is a way to ensure complete safety for a year, with what kind of safety you get depending on some things we'll talk about later. Sadly, you can only play this game if you live in the countries, as you'll need a large backyard for this to work. But if you have that, here's what you'll need. A source of light that doesn't use electricity. Things like flashlights will instantly die if you try to use them, so you gotta use flame-based lighting. A crucifix, and a watch that's not electric. In order for this ritual to work, there must be nobody around the area of your house, as the creature you're summoning for this ritual won't come unless you're its only witness. Now go outside sometime after the sun's gone down. The earliest time you can do this is 9 p.m. and chant 7 times, "But who will scare the crows away?" If successful, then after saying it the last time, you will hear somebody whisper to you, "That's not your biggest problem." Walk backwards into your house and make sure you do not look behind you until you get inside. Now, the game begins. Everything in your house that can be opened has been opened. Doors, windows, cupboards, bags, jars. If it can be opened, then it has opened. Before doing anything else, take your crucifix to a room with only one door and make sure to close anything in there that can be opened. To win the game, you have to close everything. Seems simple, right? Well, remember, as I said, everything that can be opened has opened. As the story states, the challenge isn't the closing part, it's actually finding everything in the first place. As you play, you'll get brief glances of a guy with gray skin dressed as a farmer. Don't worry about him. This guy's just a referee, making sure everything's getting shut. And he won't get in your way either. So pay him no mind. Keep in mind, though, do not look in the backyard, because if you do, you'll see a scarecrow with unnaturally long limbs and a cow skull. This is the man in the fields, and if you look at him, we'll get to that later. Anyway, everything in your house must be shut by midnight. If you are 100% sure that anything that can be opened has been shut, go to bed. If it worked, you will wake up with a year's worth of complete safety. 3 hours before midnight, you'll get complete physical safety. Nothing can hurt you, and you're basically immortal for a year. 2 hours before midnight, and in addition to that, you'll also be financially safe for a year. You can make the most stupid monetary choices possible, and you'll never run out of money. But make sure by the end of the year you have some sort of money-making venture going, as once the year's up, all the money you earned will end up getting away from you. So either invest or start a business during this time. And if you manage to complete this game in just an hour, then you will be safe from any sort of consequence. You can do whatever you want and never get in trouble. As the story says, I would say not to do anything evil, but if you really manage to hunt down every jar, bag, door, and window in your house in just an hour, you can do whatever you want. However, if at any point, even if you've technically won, you look outside and see the man in the fields, then you must immediately get to the room with the crucifix and lock the door. You do not want him to get in. The Three Kings ritual is a ritual you can use to temporarily access a plane known as the Shadow Side. Before we begin, there are 3 things to keep in mind before you try this. Do not do this if on a day you do it, you've done any sort of drugs, and this includes alcohol. Do not do this if you're not mentally well, and do not do this ritual if you're just using it to escape from reality. To do this, you'll need a large empty room without windows, a candle and a lighter, a bucket of water and a mug, a fan, 2 large mirrors and 3 chairs, alarm clock, a cell phone, somebody close to you, and a toy from your childhood. To start, at 11 p.m., place your chair in the center of the room, making sure it points north. Then take the other 2 chairs and place them to the exact left and right of you, facing towards your chair. Put the mirrors on them and make sure that you can see your reflection from them on your chair without having to move your eyes or your head. If you can make out your reflection out of the corners of your eyes, you did it right. Put the bucket and mug in front of you, just out of reach. Put the fan behind you and turn it on, but not to max. Turn off the lights and leave, keeping the door open. Leave the candles next to your bed and set an alarm for 3:30 a.m. Turn off the lights and go to sleep while holding the toy you selected. At 3:30, before you continue, if anything of the following happened, abort the ritual. If your alarm went off at any time other than 3:30, if the door is closed, or if the fan is off. To abort the ritual, all you have to do is leave your house until 6 a.m. Anyway, if all goes well, you have 3 minutes to light your candle, grab your phone, and get to the room, making sure you're in your seat by 3:33. Stare straight ahead, not at the mirrors and not at the candle, just forward. Make sure you do not let the fan blow out the candles. If all goes according to plan, you will be able to talk to the entity sitting in your chairs. This game cannot end until 4:34, and to end it, either the fan has to blow out the candle in front of you, or your loved one has to douse you with water or call you on your phone. And if all else fails, your toy will show you the way out. So yeah, just a ritual to talk to other entities. The end. Okay, this one's pretty obscure, but since I read this one all the time as a kid, I'm going to indulge. There is said to be a SpongeBob episode that never aired. It's just a compilation of clips from other episodes, but the animator who worked on it had their lungs ripped out. If you manage to find this episode, when it shows a clip from the episode I Was a Teenage Gary, close your eyes and make a wish. You will feel a pain in your chest for 30 seconds, and the episode will slow down. 2 days later, whatever you wish for will be granted. But, from now on, you can never watch a brand new SpongeBob episode. Reruns are fine, but if you ever watch an episode as it premieres, you will have your own lungs ripped out. Let's finish this off with my personal favorite ritual pasta. This is a ritual about how to visit hell without being dead. Before you can set out on your journey, you must have killed somebody at one point in your life. After that, you need to find your nearest church and go to it between midnight and 1 a.m. on a Sunday. If it's impossible to enter, find the next closest church. Get on your knees in a praying position and say this Latin phrase in a monotone voice. If you did it right, you'll instantly fall asleep and wake up back in your room with a piece of paper on your bed. And on this paper is a link. Type it in on a computer that has no way to access the internet. Enter the address, and despite lack of internet, you'll be taken to a website. It's just a black page with a link, but do not click it. Instead, save the page and view the file in a notepad document. At the bottom is an address. Write it down and take the computer as far away from you as you can and destroy it. And also make sure you never go back to the church you said the prayer in. A week later, visit the address you wrote down. There will now be a warehouse there that wasn't there before. Knock on its door exactly 6 times. Any more or less, then Old Scratch will show up and take you to a place far worse than hell. But if you do it right, an old man will open the door and give you a disc with the words hell.exe on it. Find another computer with no internet access and put the disc in. On it, there are 2 files, diablo.jpg and hell.exe. Do not click on diablo.jpg, as viewing it will make you rip your eyes out. Just run hell.exe, and it'll display a montage of your dead relatives' corpses before bringing up 2 buttons, come and leave. If you click leave, the ritual's over, and you'll have no memory of ever doing it. But if you click come, the computer will burst into flames. Don't panic, don't run, just let the heat envelop you until you're unconscious. When you wake up, you'll be in a hospital. Don't get up. Just wait. When you hear people enter, shut your eyes and wait for the individuals to leave. You might want to cover your ears as they'll start discussing the time and cause of your death. Once they leave, wait 10 minutes and make your exit. You will end up in a long corridor. If the lights go out, run and get out of the fire escape and slam it as soon as you can. You are now in limbo. For the final step, find a sharp rock of some kind and stab your eyes and ears out to make sure you cannot hear or see anything that happens. Whew. And then stab yourself. You will end up in hell, where you are now free to meet your relatives who were sinners. To leave, just shout this Latin phrase, and you're done. Just be warned, though. There are many people who've done this ritual, and almost all of them have had horrible lives from that point on. So be careful. So, after Jeff the Killer came out, it kind of opened the floodgates for a bunch of other stories trying to ride its coattails. And it started what can best be described as a plague in the community. The Jeff knockoff. Basically, you write a story, it's about a teenager, you have him go through some sort of trauma, and then bibbity bobbity boo, they're a killer now. Oh, and don't forget to give him a catchphrase. These things were everywhere, and it seemed like they never stopped coming. It got to the point where the Creepypasta wiki had to make a rule saying, you cannot write a story that's just blatantly Jeff the Killer, but with a different character. There are a lot of Jeff knockoffs out there, but 3 of them in particular stand out in notoriety, so let's talk about them. I am 90% sure that Jane came about so that there would be someone to ship Jeff with. Anyways, Jane is weird because there are 2 different stories that act like her origin. The first is called Jane the Killer, but it's also known as Jane's Letter. It's a story where police find a letter at a murder scene addressed to Jeff. Basically, Jane's a girl who kills people because she hates Jeff, and I guess she kills people so he can't, and she wants Jeff dead. Oh, and you know what her catchphrase is? Don't go to sleep. Ah, that's clever. I never understood this story. If she hates Jeff because he's a murderer, why does she kill people? Maybe you could argue that it's her being hypocritical and that's what makes her scary, but I feel like the story doesn't make it clear as to how we're supposed to see Jane morality-wise. Anyways, another story that came out acting as her origin is called The Real Story of Jane the Killer. First things first, I hate stories that do that. I genuinely hate stories that do that. It's always just so pretentious, and never mind, that's a tangent for another day. Anyways, in this, I don't know, I've heard this story like 5 times and I still don't know how to describe it. It's like the original Jeff the Killer story, but Jane's there, and then she gets burned, and then Jeff gives her a mask or something, and now she hates him, and gonna be honest, the only thing I remember about the story is that it makes me wonder what's supposed to be scary about it. In this story, Jane's not a killer, and she's just hunting down Jeff, so what's scary about this? It's just like, you wrote a story about someone who's literally not a threat to anyone besides a bad person, so what's supposed to be scary here? How is this a creepypasta? Anyways, Jane had a big impact on the community, solely so people had someone to ship Jeff with, but as a story, she's not respected at all, either versions. Of all the Jeff knockoffs, probably the most respected is Tiki Toby. In this story, Toby's a kid with an abusive father, several mental conditions, and a rough school life. And to make matters worse, he's being stalked by a tall, faceless figure, yeah. Anyways, one day he snaps, kills his family, sets his neighborhood on fire. He almost dies, but the faceless tall figure, who is not anyone else, saves him and turns him into a minion. Tiki Toby was pretty popular, like I said. He was more well-received than other Jeff knockoffs, and in fact, some argue he's even a better story than Jeff the Killer. I feel like the reason this one got popular is because it didn't feel like it was some poorly disguised power fantasy or some weird fan fiction about Jeff, and it actually tried to be a scary story. Still not amazing though, but it's alright. Toby became stupidly popular in the fandom, and honestly,
Phantom Toby's the epitome of that whole canon versus fanon meme, because you read Tiki Toby, it's this tale about a tortured boy who snaps and basically becomes a puppet with no free will to a supernatural being. And then you look at how he's portrayed in fan works, and it's all like, he's a quirky boy, he's hilarious, he likes pancakes, and isn't he silly? And yeah, it's a weird disconnect, I have to say. In recent years, though, Toby's authors pretty much condemned the creepypasta fandom, and apparently he's declared that Toby's not a creepypasta anymore, which, can you do that? Can you just declare a character isn't in a certain medium? I don't even know how that works. Well, we just talked about the most well-respected Jeff knockoff. Here's the most infamous of them. This is Clockwork. Your time is up. It's often used as the epitome of how bad Jeff riff-offs could be. Clockwork tells the story of a girl who goes through all sorts of incredibly messed up things before eventually snapping. She replaces one of her eyes with a clock, and then she becomes a serial killer named Clockwork. Clockwork is not a good story, and for a while it was the butt of the jokes in the creepypasta fandom. It basically did every no-no you can do in writing a story. It includes gratuitous, shocking content, bad things happening just because you need something bad to happen. It follows the Jeff formula to a T, and the whole clock motif, it's barely explained. It's like she suddenly develops a fear of time and decides to make herself time-themed. That's the best we get. It comes out of nowhere and is poorly explained. But I'm gonna be honest, I can't be mad at this story. Why? Well, as it turns out, the story was written as a sort of vent piece by the author who went through similar things to the main character. So because of that, I don't feel comfortable making fun of this story. And apparently, much like Tiki Toby, the authors disavowed the fandom, and I can understand in this case. So yeah, Jeff knockoffs, they were everywhere, but eventually they kind of pattered out. But I'll still never forget this era. It was just nothing but anime OCs that treat murdering like it was this super cool rad thing that all the cool kids are doing. Funny story, whenever I see art featuring a collage of creepypasta characters, there's always at least one character in there where I'm just like, who are you? Is the illustrator trying to pass their OC off like they're some sort of well-established character? Anyway, while we're on the topic of stories inspired by Jeff the Killer, let's talk about more examples not related to Jeff. Slender Man, pretty famous creepypasta, so as such, people want to expand his lore, which they did by giving him a family. There's Splendor Man, who originated as a parody of Slender Man before being adopted into Slender lore as Slender's brother who doesn't kill people. Okay, I guess he's the good equivalent of Slender Man. He doesn't kill people, he wants to cheer them up. There's Trender Man, who's a hipster, and I don't know, this guy feels like kind of an obligatory character. Like, he was in things, but he was always just kind of there. I don't know what his whole deal is. He's like a hipster or something. Let's just move on. And then there's the worst one. Offender Man, who... Let's just say the offender in his title is a good indicator of what he does. Okay, let's move on. I do not want to think about Offender Man anymore. Let's move on to our last knockoff story before we get to the original stuff. So, Sonic.exe? Now we have Sally.exe. This story is an unofficial sequel to Sonic.exe, and it's Sonic.exe except with the female Sonic characters. That's it. The only notable thing about this story is that it was plagiarized! Yep. People found out that the details given about the gameplay are identical to a Sonic fan animation that predates even Sonic.exe. So yeah, the story was plagiarized. Isn't that fun? Okay, that's enough knockoffs. Let's get to the original stories. Zalgo's interesting because it's really the fans who did stuff with him, while the original story was more like a basic character introduction. Anyway, Zalgo's an entity who corrupts media and makes them scary, and in the original story, that was about it. However, later on, fans started turning Zalgo into basically the ultimate evil of the creepypasta universe. Now he was a Lovecraftian entity who could end the world and things like that. Not really a fan of Zalgo. I feel like he's an example of how making a monster too powerful ironically makes him less scary. It's hard to explain why, but I just find there's a tricky balance when it comes to how powerful a monster is, and I feel like Zalga's the prime example of a monster that's too powerful to be scary. Again, it's hard to explain exactly what I mean by this. Also, funny story, so many people tried to make Zalgo an SCP, the admins of the wiki had to come out, and they made a story where Zalgo gets rejected from the position due to how he's basically just powerful and doesn't have any sort of gimmick. That's funny. Another thing that makes me not able to take Zalgo seriously, there was once an incident where Zalgo's author recorded his girlfriend having a mental breakdown while he just stood there doing a Mickey Mouse impression. The funny part is that you think I'm kidding. Come Play With Me is a story that is more disturbing than scary, but not in a good way. This story is about a little girl named Sally whose uncle does horrible things to her and then kills her. Anyway, now she's a ghost who haunts people, and it's left vague as to what she plans to do with them afterwards. As a story, this is not well liked due to how, well, it seems to think including shocking content's the same as being scary, and this and Clockwork are considered the worst examples of a creepypasta doing that. Sally did become weirdly popular in the fandom though, but I get the feeling that not a lot of people actually read her story. I noticed that anytime she appears, nothing that happens in her story is ever mentioned, so I think people just took the character and went, mine! So, yeah, I don't like this story. It uses serious elements in an incredibly poorly handled way, and it feels like they only included that for shock value, which is a big no-no for horror, I say. Mr. Widemouth is finally something good in this entry. This tells the story of a sickly kid who encounters a small creature known as Mr. Widemouth. He pretends to be the kid's friend, but it quickly becomes clear he wants them dead. He tells him, hey, juggle these knives, or hey, jump out the window, there's an invisible trampoline. But the kid keeps saying no. Eventually, Mr. Widemouth tells him about a special place he takes his friends to before the author has to move. Years later, the author returns to where the house was and decides to go where Widemouth said he would take him, only to find it's a cemetery where most of the stones have concerningly small lifespans. Good story. Barbie.avi is interesting because nothing actually supernatural happens, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Barbie.avi is a story about a guy who stumbles across an old computer, upon which are mysterious video files called Barbie. The videos are hard to decipher thanks to their low quality audio, but one of them ends with someone walking down the train tracks. The author, recognizing these tracks, follows them to see where they lead, and finds an abandoned house. He goes in exploring for a bit before fleeing when he hears a moan. Like I said, nothing supernatural happens in this story, and I feel like that raises the perfect amount of questions without going so far, so I really like this story. This story also led to a bit of a hunt, as with the story included some videos that were, as described, were hard to make out to decipher, and it led to people trying to find the origins of these clips. Eventually, it was found out that they came from an interview with a woman who lost her arm. So yeah, good story, and it led to a fascinating hunt. The Wyoming incident is an alleged TV hijacking where creepy images appeared on screen. This turned out to be part of an ARG. I don't know what to say here. The Theater's a story about a bootleg PC game that's basically impossible to install without crashing. If you do manage to get it running, though, you'll find it's nothing special. It's just a walking game where you just repeatedly enter a theater. But as the game goes on, strange things start to happen. The ticket man disappears, walking into the theater takes longer to do, and eventually you get jump scared by a corrupted sprite known as the Swirly Man. The normal loop goes on for a little bit before eventually you find the ticket man bouncing in place saying that you'll never reach the other levels. When you walk into the theater this time, you're brought back to the lobby, but there's a brick wall blocking the entrance, and touching it will immediately crash the game. This story's simple, but sweet, and honestly, this story does creep me out a little due to just how liminal this whole game is. It's kinda great. Killswitch tells a story about a game that's very rare and is impossible to make more copies of, due to having perfect copy protection. Oh, also, once you beat the game, it wipes itself from the disc, making it useless. This story's pretty good because nothing supernatural happens, and the idea of a game being impossible to play again is fascinating. Mr. Mix is about an old computer game where you type the words of food so the titular Mr. Mix can put them in a bowl. However, the game was controversial due to being weirdly eerie, as most of the music on the levels was completely inappropriate tracks, like high-pitched squealing and a random low-quality sound of a hairdryer. In addition, the fifth level is impossible to beat, as it requires a typing speed impossible for humans. One day, a group of hackers managed to hack the game to bypass the fifth level, and what they ended up seeing drove them to insanity, to the point that one guy kidnapped a kid, and when questioned, all he said was, "I'm Mr. Mix. Shh." Let's end this video off with something that's not a singular story, but rather, it's a whole community that I stumbled across, and I just have to talk about it because it is one of those baffling things I ever saw. So, like I said, this isn't a singular story, but it's a whole subgenre. But I've not seen a single person talk about this, so I need to because I feel like someone else needs to know about this. So, remember THX? You know, the logo? Yeah, those guys. Anyway, in some of their bumpers they had a mascot called Tex, who was a robot. And a few years back, for whatever reason, this guy became a popular topic for creepypastas. Yes, really. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you THX Tex, a baffling group of creepypastas that detail Tex going around killing animated characters. And basically, the way these stories work is that the main character finds a box set from some animation studio, and one of the discs is called the rare THX trailer made by whatever the studio is. They watch it, and it just has Tex killing characters from their productions. And it ends with Tex saying he does it because people are scared of him, and then they destroy the disc. Also, apparently, Zurg is involved in this. Like, Toy Story Zurg? What? There's a whole community dedicated to these kinds of stories, and it doesn't just stop at Tex killing spree stories either. We have the deleted version and internship recreations of certain scenes, where basically the author is just emailed by a movie studio and they're like, "Hey, you're a fan of our work, here's a piece of lost media." They watch it and it's just a bloody version of a scene from the film. Sometimes it's a deleted scene, but other times they're called internship recreations, which, what does that even mean? And then there's this weird subgenre. Yeah, a subgenre in a subgenre in a subgenre, where they put different characters in the opening of Monsters, Inc., and each of these stories is exactly the same. They just swap out the characters. It's like one character takes the place of the role of Flem, and then they start chasing the kid around, who turns out it isn't a robot, and then Zurg appears, and they kill the kid, and then the curtain comes up, and a completely random character is all like, "That was too disturbing, you're fired," and yeah, they just take that and swap out the characters. I have a few thoughts about these things. For one, I genuinely can't tell if they're supposed to be scary or if they're some kind of parody, because they include a lot of blood and guts and they seem to act like it's scary, but they also have lines like, "It's me, sexy Texy," and they just have Tex make a bunch of quips like he's some sort of comic book villain, and yeah, I can't tell how seriously these things are supposed to be taken. I don't know. So, why are these a thing? Well, I have two theories. One, I've noticed that most of the scenes that have these recreations and internship versions are scenes that a lot of people were scared by when they were younger, so my guess is that it's people trying to make those scenes scary again for older audiences, which makes sense in my head. And theory two, I think this might tie into the logo community. Yes, there's a fandom for logos. And this does seem like something they would make. I mean, there's an entire ARG about the Nickelodeon logo, but it's spelled backwards, and they gaslit the internet into believing in a fake TV show, so this would be in character for them. Or this could be connected to the spoofing community, which is basically a community that just, you take a piece of media and just swap the characters out for characters from other movie, and somehow that makes it a parody. Or maybe this is related to Pooh's Adventure somehow. which is basically you take a story and then shoehorn every character in existence into it. There's a lot of communities they seem to be connected to. And with that, I think I've covered every notable creepypasta from back in the day, except for some video game ones, but I don't care because they're not original, they're just scary mods or something. Anyway, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And remember... Wait, what are you guys supposed to remember? Oh no. Goodbye.